From my audience feedback, I found that my documentary was very informative and portrayed the message that I wanted it to portray. I also found that my audience learned a lot from my documentary, which means it was very entertaining whilst informative and helped my audience to grasp what the documentary was supposed to be about. I think the editing of my documentary, what I found from my audience feedback was that I could have edited the sound of the music a bit better so it flowed with the image. As one of the interviews towards the end, the music seems to increase in volume whilst the interviewee is still speaking, which is a put off for the audience while they're listening to the interview. Also, I think that with the editing of the videos, I think the interviews could have been a bit clearer and also maybe a bit longer. I think on a couple of the interviews, the backdrop wasn't filmed with the white backdrop, which could have been altered. I think the white backdrop made the interviews look very professional, which is what I found from the audience feedback. Also, from my results from the audience feedback, I found that the obeying conventions wasn't as high as I expected it to be. So I think I could have used my conventions list a bit more whilst making my documentary and incorporated more codes and conventions from regular documentaries into mine. I also think that the archive footage that I used could have been slightly clearer, as some of it wasn't edited fully and had extra information that wasn't needed within the documentary. I also found that my documentary was very entertaining, and for my target audience it suited well because the language and choice of music I used appealed well with my target audience. The topic of my documentary was popular for my audience. From the feedback, I found that a lot of my target audience learnt that the addictions that were mentioned weren't always addictions that people were aware of, and a lot of my target audience could relate to my documentary and relate to the topics that were brought up within the documentary. Also, I find that the documentary did flow very well. However, certain bits of the editing of the interviews didn't flow well into the next interview, and from using cross dissolves a lot, I think I could have used maybe a different transition from interview to another interview. So overall, I think the documentary was averagely successful and my target audience seemed to enjoy the documentary. From my target audience reviews, I think I could have edited the sound a bit better and the transitions from interview to interview slightly better. Also, the backdrop on the two interviews could have been used as a white backdrop to make it look more professional, and from my audience feedback, that is what I found. Also, from my audience feedback evidence, I found that a few people from my audience research found that within the beginning montage, one of the shots was slightly unsteady. So to improve this, I could have set up the tripod a bit better maybe whilst filming, and also used a selection of different camera shots instead of just one. Also, the panning on some of the shots was a bit unsteady, so a tripod could have been used there as well. So overall it was quite successful, and the alterations that I could have made are evidently clear. My target audience research and the audience feedback has helped me to understand and grasp the different concepts that I could have used to improve my documentary.